It's Friday, November 3rd. I'm Geoff Schwartz. This is Geoff Schwartz this morning. We're live on Twitter, YouTube, and we're on your favorite podcast platform of choice. If you're here, guys, please leave us a rating and a review. It really helps our business, and we love having you listen to the show. And if you're here, we'd love for you to do that. On Friday, we're brought to you by Vaulted, the home of my season-long game, giving out $14,000 of cash prizes in my pools with $5,000 allocated to my final pool of the season, which will be the day of the big game. That's Vaulted, spelled V-L-T-E-D. It's a place you can store your sports predictions, participate in cash prize pools without any entry fees, and prove you're smarter than your friends by using the Vaulted Challenge feature. I have my own pool each week on Vaulted, which you guys know where to find it. Go to the Vaulted app. You win cash prizes. First place, $400. Second place, $75. Third place, $25. It's free to enter. We're doing it every single week of the season. And to qualify for the big game pool, you have to beat me in the weekly pool. So go to the Vaulted app. That's VLTED. Go find me. That's Geoff with a G, Geoff. Interact with me. Look at my predictions. Look at my pool. Have a lot of fun with it. We always enjoy when you guys join up. This week, we're doing things a little bit different. We teased for a couple weeks now. Matt is with child now. His wife gave birth to their beautiful child, so he will not be here this week. He may be back next week, but Matt and I have talked throughout the week about picks. We'll get to that in a little bit, but I'm glad to be joined now by a friend of mine, a colleague of mine at Fox Sports. He also works at Nesson, also has the Chicken Dinner podcast. Sammy P., welcome to the program, buddy. I'm glad to have you. And you dressed up today. You're wearing, for those who are watching online, you got a jacket, a nice shirt on, a pocket square, man. I love it, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing well, my friend. Thanks for the invite. This is like a home and home. You were on Chicken Dinner last football season, and now I'm on your show, although are you really smarter than me? Are you?
I am. I will say you're one of the few people that I'm probably not smarter than, especially in the gambling world. I explain you to people like you're a Game of Thrones fan. You watch Game of Thrones, I would imagine.
I did not, no.
Oh, jeez. There's a guy that's like Lord of Whispers. He's like the guy that gets all the information from all over the kingdoms. That is you, Sammy. You're the guy that knows everything about all the lines, all the injuries, where everything's going. How did you start in the gambling business? Because that's a pretty strong connection you have with a lot of people out west.
Well, the business side of it, I didn't start until 2016. I was working as a reporter in Chicago, so I guess the whisper side of things started as, I had to get scoops. Like I would try and break trades or signings or things like that with the major teams in Chicago, Bears, Bulls, Cubs, Hawks, and Sox. And that sort of cut my teeth in terms of trying to find things out, create sources, have a network and all that. And then Joe Ostrowski and I worked at competing radio stations. So we couldn't work together, but we were both gambling like crazy. So we said, look, we should do a podcast because everybody needs a podcast, right?
Yes.
So we started Chicken Dinner in 2016. And then 2 years later, I took a job out in Vegas working for Brent Musburger and the Vegas Stats and Information Network. So that sort of gave me a crash course in Las Vegas. It was like a master program. I was out there for a year and a half, got to meet these big bettors and meet these bookmakers and all that, and just sort of continued to bloom the onion. And then when I left VSiN, I had an opportunity to come out here and be on TV every day at Nesson. So it's sort of a weird path. It's sort of like being an offensive lineman in the NFL. You know where you're at now, but you don't know where you're going to be in 3 years. I never thought I'd be doing gambling content for a living, but here we are.
So have you always liked to gamble? Because I have a personality that likes to gamble. Like I gambled throughout my career with sort of 1 year deals and trying to find the best spot for me. But obviously I didn't gamble on sports until I was finished playing, but it was something that I always sort of had an eye on. Did you grow up gambling in a gambling household? Something you wanted to do as a kid?
Yeah, my dad gambled for sure. And we were shooting dice in driver's ed when I was 15, 16. So it was sort of in the blood. I had uncles that were bookies. And for those of us not watching, I did put quotations around uncles. It was funny because I had this knack for picking college basketball when I was really young. I played basketball. I played through high school and all that, but I was never good enough to play. I'm not going to give you some sob story about how my knee blew out and I couldn't, I knew I wasn't going to play. I'm a 6'1" white guy that can't jump. So I was like 12, 13 years old, and I really had this affinity for the Big Ten. Like I watched all the games, and I had this knack for sort of looking in the Sun-Times every Saturday. And as you know, Saturday is a big college day for football and basketball, and it would be, 7 games in the Big Ten. If it was conference play, it was less. It was 3 or 4. And I just had this ability to pick winners. in college basketball. But I wasn't gambling. I was giving the picks to my dad's friends. And
Okay.
then they sort of figured out that I was kind of better than them. And they would call the house on Saturday morning and go, is Sammy there? And my mom would answer the phone and give the phone to my dad because it's my dad's friends. And they go, no, the other Sam. And then I'd be like, yeah, I like Minnesota +4 or whatever. So it started with Big Ten hoops and like 7th and 8th grade. I started picking these games out of the paper. Well, because the paper always had the lines, like at the back of the sports page. Didn't have a bookie at 12. But I sort of understood what the spread was at a very young age, believe it or not.
So how's your process work now each week with football? Like, how do you prepare? Like, Saturday is obviously the end of college football will end Saturday night. The NFL will end Monday night, but obviously the bulk of the games are over by Sunday. How's your process work to sort of getting ready for each week before you make your wagers?
It's changed a lot over the last 5 years. I used to bet day of the game during football season, like most of us do. I mean, I'm not trying to say that it's the wrong thing. It's just you miss good numbers if you're betting day of the game. Like if you're betting Saturday and Sunday for college and pro, you've missed moves. Like this Texas-Kansas State game this week opened at 51 last Sunday, days ago. And I thought, well, I have a feeling that game is probably going to come lower because I know that the market is going to short Malik Murphy. He threw a lot of screen passes last week against BYU, and BYU was giving up big chunk plays. Well, you're not going to screen Kansas State to death. So early in the week, it's sort of anticipation of market. Where do I think the money's going to go? And you can lock in good numbers. Like Iowa State -1 is now 2.5, 3. So trying to project where the money's going to come in later in the week can get you to some bets, on Monday and Tuesday. As for the games later in the week, like let's take a game, Chicago-New Orleans. Look, I don't love the Bears. In fact, I think they're one of the worst teams in football. But, Geoff, this number has crossed through 7. It opened 5.5 in Vegas. Now it's 8.5. And everybody wanted to bet the Bears Sunday night after Bajent beat the Raiders of all teams, and they got throttled, and now nobody wants to bet the Bears. Well, I'm going to take a good number. So it's anticipation of the market early in the week, and then it's sort of capitalizing on the overreactions later in the week. I wasn't going to take 5.5. I wasn't going to take 6, but you're going to give me 8.5 against Derek Carr, who's 17, 34, and 2 is a favorite. Give me a break. So that's a sort of complex answer, but it's understanding where the numbers start, where they're probably going to move, and then if they move too far, you take advantage.
Talk about your power rating system, because I think people don't understand how the lines are sort of made. They're not obviously they're just not coming out of thin air, but they're done basically on power ratings, right? Vegas has a power rating, and they sort of figure it out. How do you come up with your power rating to figure out where you have teams ranked?
So I have a couple guys that send me their power ratings, and I sort of massage them all together. I have 3 guys. One of them is Kenny White, who's been making numbers in Vegas. He's a legend out there, 4 decades. His dad was an odds maker. So you sort of take their numbers and kind of like combine and then divide by 3 and get to that number. Like, for example, we'll take Alabama LSU. That's a perfect example this week. So those 2 teams, according to the 3 guys, are basically equal on a neutral field. I want to say it's like 117 and 117. So that is the team power rating. Well, on a neutral, this game's a pick'em. Yet when you move it to Tuscaloosa, you have to add in the edge for home field. And Alabama's like 3-4 points, but the market is now Alabama painted 3. So it's really a system of trying to put a number to teams. In the NFL, the highest power rated team right now at full strength is still San Francisco, despite their 3 straight losses and their injuries on the offensive line. Debo is hurt, but at full strength, Geoff, that is still on a neutral field. San Francisco is the best team in football. And if San Francisco is in the Super Bowl, they might be favored over every team that isn't Kansas City. You give Mahomes the love because he has 2 rings. But it's really trying to avoid perception and having a reality based on numbers, because it's very easy to look at teams and go, well, they've won 3 in a row or they've lost 3 in a row. But weird shit happens in sport. I mean, look at Clemson, for example. Clemson is 4-4, and there are going to be a lot of people this week that don't want to bet Clemson, and I understand it. But they have 3 losses, all by 1 score, or they have 4 losses. They're 4-4, but 3 of the losses are by 1 score, and 2 of those are in overtime. It's a little unlucky. they're power rated still pretty high. They're just not sexy to the common
Yeah.
bettor who looks at the record and goes, "Oh, they're 4-4, and Notre Dame only has to win by 4." It's never that simple. And teams over time, over a bigger sample size, will play to their power rating.
You mentioned the Clemson game, and it's interesting talking about. We talked about this on Bear Bets the other day about like Vegas sort of setting out a number there, hoping you take the other side essentially. How do you wade through that noise where it seems like a number might be too good to be true? As you mentioned, like, oh, Notre Dame wants to win by 4. And really the Clemson +3 side is like the actual side that they want you to sort of take.
I think the books are happy writing Notre Dame -3, and I'll tell you what, they're probably even happier with the avalanche of parlays. I mean, think about the money line parlays on a Saturday. People are going to just put Notre Dame money line in their box, -160, -170. Oh, well, they're going to win. They're a better team. They have a better record. And really, it's not that simple. I mean, I'm more of an X's and O's type guy when we get to college, as you are as well. I mean, you played the sport at a very high level. Notre Dame wants to run the football. Well, Clemson has 3 NFL guys on the D-line. So that sort of negates what Notre Dame would like to do. And Sam Hartman is good, but I don't think he's great by any stretch. Clemson also has pretty good guys in the secondary. So that's just the game where, if you go back 5 years and you put Clemson at home against Notre Dame, Clemson's going to be favored in every one of those games. But because Clemson has sort of underachieved this year, that's why they are the dog at home, albeit a small one at +3. But I promise you, buddy, the money line parlays, most of those involving this game are going to have Notre Dame and not Clemson. And clearly, it's a pick'em game on a neutral. I mean, to have Notre Dame, or not on a neutral, it's a pick'em game like in its own right. Like it should be a pick'em, but Notre Dame has the what's the term? The luster or the aura. But here's the other side of it. They've been playing almost every single week since August. Their season started week 0 in Dublin, and they've only had 1 week off in this college football season. I just wonder, at what point does the gaslight go on? And you're not going to manhandle Clemson, especially in the trenches. So this will be a game where the house is definitely going to root for Clemson. And in that case, I'm going to take the unpopular dog at home getting 3.
How much difference is there wagering on college football versus the NFL? Because everyone always says the NFL is the hardest to wager on. It's the sharpest, right? The least amount of games, obviously, the most people want to wager on those games. How different is it for you?
Well, injuries in college can just, blow a line wide open. I mean, you've been the recipient of some of these tips we've had the last couple of years. Like a starting quarterback at Temple, if he's any good, could be worth 7 points. It's the starting quarterback, and then there's a huge drop off to the backup. Where we get to the NFL, all right, Kirk Cousins to Josh Dobbs is probably 4 points. But a really good college quarterback at an average school could be worth 7 or 8 points. Like Curtis Rourke at Ohio is another example. He was out this year. The line moved 6 points. So if you can get the right information, you can get these things to just fly open. And the other thing that's interesting about college is these totals can fluctuate. I mean, we got a game this week in the low 30s with Iowa and Northwestern. And then you look at USC Washington and it's 77.5.
That's insane.
You're not going to see that. You're not going to see that range in the NFL. So I think sometimes for bookmakers, Geoff, it's easier to set totals in the NFL because you're mostly going to be in that 45 to 47 sweet spot. If it's, Bills and Chiefs, it's probably low 50s. If it's Texans and Colts, it might be high 30s. But the accordion isn't that stretchy. Where if we get, Iowa, Boston College, that total might be, I don't want to say 17.5, but I don't think that'd be too far off. And then you get USC and Washington, and we're at almost 80. So I think it's harder to make some of these totals in college because anything can happen in a college football game. I mean, we could see guys throw for 400 or 500 yards, and tackling is not great. I think the NFL is a lot more volatile. There's a lot more wide-ranging stuff in the NFL, where college, usually the better team is going to take care of business. And then we also see bigger spreads. I mean, teams are laying 30 and 40. And I remember when Stanford beat USC one year, it was like a 40-point dog when Harbaugh was coaching.
Yeah,
you would never see a 40-point favorite in the NFL.
I mean, even in some of these bad games, we'll get to the NFL in a second. I mean, you mentioned Bears, you get to like 8-9 points. You're like, that's ridiculous. I'm taking the dog because that's just too many points in the NFL, because obviously everyone is a professional. Last question before we kind of get into the NFL slate. You do not give out a lot of picks relative to, I think, your peers in the industry. How do you sort of decide to keep your menu very limited when a lot of us just fire away as we see fit?
Yeah, some of us more than others too, huh?
Yeah.
I have learned that my bosses now are in a position where they don't really care about volume of picks. They want good picks. Like Fox
Yeah.
asks for best bets every Friday, and I give usually 4 or 5, and that's awesome. But I've always been sort of a centralized type of guy. I don't like 30 bets a week. I like, 5 to 10. I like the ones that I really like. We do give out best bets on our TV show here at Nesson every day, but it's one bet. Claudia gives a bet, Travis gives a bet, and I give a bet, and that's fine. I mean, if you're doing a betting show, people do want picks.
Right.
But my bosses have been very cool with me. They don't need 18 parlays. They don't need a million best bets. They want us to explain the science, why lines move, why they are a certain way. And I've been lucky to fall into a couple of really good jobs with Nesson and with Fox. I do give out bets because Chicken Dinner is a show that was predicated on giving out bets. I think I have 6 bets on the Twitter feed right now. But no, there's never been pressure. I've never had any pressure to pump out picks that I don't like. And to me, that's incredible because not a lot of people are that fortunate. A lot of people are forced to make wagers. Like, all right, who's your Monday night lock? That sucks. Like if I had to give a Monday night lock every week, I
terrible.
hate myself.
Yeah. But this week though, you'd absolutely take the Jets for Monday night lock. Like if you wager on the Chargers this week,
you can't lay Chargers. You just can't.
You can't lay 3.5 because every game, as you have said on our show, each and every week will be tied with 3 minutes. If you look at the NFL slate this week, a lot of ugly quarterbacks, a lot of ugly teams right now. Where is your attention at for the NFL?
So I told you I played Chicago plus 8.5. I think it's an overreaction to the Bears being bad on Sunday. The number's too big. At 8.5, I was going to take it no matter what. Like I don't care who's at quarterback. There's a game in the NFC East that is really fascinating. Philly opens 3 at home against Dallas, and obviously Philly has 1 loss, best team in the NFC right now, allegedly. But I look at their advanced metrics. They are not scoring touchdowns inside the red zone. Last year they were converting inside the 20 at 70%. It's actually like 69.5%. This year, it's barely over 50. So they are not getting those automatic touchdowns inside the 20, inside the 10 that they were last year. And it's been almost a month since San Francisco railroaded Dallas. They've had time to fix some of these issues on defense. Now, you're never going to replace a Diggs or a Van Der Esch, but the more time you have, the more schematically you can be sound in this sport. And, they looked really good against the Rams. Obviously, they scored a whole bunch of points. They looked good defensively against the Chargers. And now the ability for Micah Parsons to sort of spy Jalen Hurts is really, really advantageous for me. And Hurts has not been good this year. 8 interceptions already, which is an interception per game. They really can't run the ball like they have in years past. And I think Parsons and company are going to give them a very good game. Back to the number, though. This opens 3, Philly 3 at home, and it hasn't moved. It hasn't even moved off the 3. It never went to 3.5. It never went to 4. There is a very sharp conglomerate in the desert that is loving the Bengals here. I know a couple guys that bet money line.
I love the Bengals too.
This is a game that could go either way, man. I mean, this is a game where I think I'll take the better defense getting 3. I like the Eagles' defensive line, but I do think the Cowboys have a better defense. We just saw Washington go up and down the field against Philly. Sam Howell is lighting them up. So I took 3 with Dallas, and those are the 2 bets I made: Bears plus 8.5 and Dallas Cowboys plus 3.
What does coaching, or how does coaching matter for you? Because to me, Mike McCarthy is a guy that I don't like wagering on because I don't trust him. Does that ever play a role for you as well?
Oh, of course, but it's more important to me in the playoffs. I think regular season NFL, and I don't have to tell you this. You played football. I look like I do your taxes. So I don't have to tell you that the regular season, it kind of doesn't matter in a way. We see these games. Arizona beats Dallas. A couple of years ago, Jacksonville beats Buffalo. When Josh Allen was a rookie, Minnesota's a 17-point favorite at home, and they lose to Josh Allen. So weird stuff happens in the regular season. I think in the postseason, it's tougher for me to get behind Mike McCarthy. If Brandon Staley ever gets to the playoffs, it would be tough to get behind him. Matt Eberflus will not get to the playoffs before he gets fired, but I wouldn't be betting him. I think coaching is much more important in these pressurized games, wild card weekend, divisional round, conference championship, and of course in the Super Bowl. That's why I like to bet your guy, Andy Reid. Yeah. I mean, Kansas City, say what you want about Mahomes' weapons. You have Mahomes, you have Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and this team has not only been to, but hosted 5 straight AFC championships because they are a well-oiled machine and they are continuously preparing for these postseason runs. They've been there, they've done that. That is a coach that maybe might not get you there in the regular season because they're laying bigger numbers. You know, they're laying 6, they're laying 9, they're laying 12. But in the playoffs, you don't see these big numbers. I mean, they're mostly 7 or shorter. So that's where coaching comes in. It's hard to take a small number with a bad coach. Let's put it that way.
I am on the Chiefs this weekend against the Dolphins, expecting a bounce back. Is that too obvious of a play to be on the Chiefs in Germany?
No, because you never get Kansas City -1, -2 ever,
never,
unless they're on the road. But this is a neutral site game in Frankfurt, Germany. So I don't hate it. In fact, I think the better play, not that I don't like the Chiefs, but I think the better play is to always bet these heavy hitters off a loss. Because Kansas City loses to Denver and people are like, oh, what's wrong with Kansas City? And it's you're never going to go 17-0, especially with the extra game, though. Teams aren't going to go 17-0. It's also probably better that you lose a couple games so we can correct some of these correctables. But, you know, Kansas City going into last week was 4-1, 4.25 to win the Super Bowl. Now you can bet 5-1. So that 100 makes you a little extra scratch just because Kansas City lost a one-off in Denver, which is never really an easy place to play. So I think you're onto it there. I like the Chiefs this week. I didn't make a position on the game, but I bet them 5-1 to win the Super Bowl in full anticipation that they're probably going to have the one, which they've had for years now in this AFC conference. And if they have the one and I have 5-1, they're going to be favored in that AFC title game. And then I could take the dog. I could take the dog to win the game. I could take the dog to win the Super Bowl. And then I'm in the Super Bowl with some shape of a bet. So I think if you haven't done that yet, you know, maybe pancake your bet with a little Chiefs to win the Super Bowl at 5-1 because you have $1 more value than you had last week.
Yeah, and if they win this game, the number is going to disappear, right? It'd be the worst number for the Chiefs.
Forget 5-1, and especially how about this? If they go out there and pound Miami, which is entirely possible. I mean, if Tua has a bad game or, God forbid, Tua gets knocked out, 31-10, and then that 5-1 is now 425 again, 4-1.
Yeah, and then if they beat the Eagles in 2 weeks, it goes down and down and down to where they become a heavier favorite. There's a number I have not understood all week, and I wonder if Vegas is telling me something, but I'm just not quite sure. The Bengals, to me, feel like they're far better than 2 points at home against Buffalo. I feel like this number hasn't adjusted to the Bengals playing better the last 3 weeks. Am I wrong to think this number is too low in Cincinnati?
No, you're not. I mean, it's very popular to like Cincinnati this week. John Murray, who comes on NESN every week, is 8-0 this year with his NFL best bets, and he picked Cincinnati. So I am crazy to think that I'm going to lay on the tracks for the Buffalo Bills. But conversely, my friend Eric Eager, who works at Sumer Sports, he still has a very high power rating on Buffalo. You know, Buffalo is a team that I think a lot of people don't want to see in the playoffs. You're shaking your head. You're like, I don't believe it. Look, I believe
Eric. I like Eric. I just think that Buffalo is so high variance each week. They're just not trustworthy.
Would you be surprised if Josh Allen threw 4 touchdowns and they won?
No, I'd be never surprised, but I equally wouldn't be surprised if he threw 3 interceptions and fumbled and they lost by 2 touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like I think
that's Eric's point, though. Like he thinks this is a good correctionable spot for Buffalo. I don't have a single dollar on the game. I think that it could honestly go either way. I bet, as I told you guys on Bear Bets, I wrote up 48.5 over earlier in the week. I just want both teams to have fun. I want everybody to have orange slices after the game. But if this game goes the way I think it can, this could be 34-30. And to your point, it could be either way. So I feel like this is that Sunday night game that we deserve. We've had a lot of crap on Sunday night this year. We've had Mac Jones and Kenny Pickett and Jimmy G and Tyson Bagent, and we finally get Allen and Burrow. Let's give us what we deserve. Let's give us a lot of points here. But I think it's crazy to think that Buffalo can't win. Buffalo has proven that they can have these big games. But I think the maddening part about being a Buffalo fan or a Buffalo bettor is that they are so wildly ranging. Like they could win by 20 and then they can lose to Tampa Bay. They didn't lose to Tampa, but they let Tampa cover in the back door. But yeah, that's a game that I could have made a case for either side. I don't hate either part of the pendulum, but I just think we get points.
Last game here before a couple questions about props and whatnot. Why are the Vegas Raiders favored over anyone right now? Antonio Pierce is taking over. No Jimmy G, right? Aiden O'Connell. Like, they're not a talented football team. Adams and Max Crosby are good. Giants get Daniel Jones back. They're desperate for a win. I am baffled by the Raiders being a favorite here. Am I missing something?
Only because they're at home, but clearly this number 1.5 says that there's not much of a home field in Vegas, and that's one of those destination games where everybody rallies up the troops and goes, hey, let's go to Vegas for the weekend. Yes. So it's sort of a destination game. Look, the Giants are still, to most guys, they're either 30 or 31 in the power ratings. Arizona's 32, and then the Giants are either 30 or 31 from all the guys that I talk to. So while the Raiders are bad, the Giants did just have a quarterback who threw for 8 yards last week. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it's, these are both. I told you I want Cincy and Buffalo to both have fun. Yeah. I want these teams to have no fun. I want them both to suffer. What's the total at right now? 30? Yeah, 37. Did they get to 37? Did they get there?
It's 37. There's a 37.5 too somewhere. No, it opened 39.5 too. Opened that high. Wow. Yeah.
Are you going to bet that game?
I'm thinking about the Giants. Yeah. The Raiders should not be favored over anyone, and I don't believe in like the coaching change bump. I think people feel that the coaching change equals like a better team. The Raiders aren't any good, Sammy. Like, what are they going to do in this game that was worthy of them winning this game? I can't see. The Giants need to win in the worst way, obviously. Last week was atrocious, but Daniel Jones being back makes him a competent team. I didn't realize though that they're power rated at like 31 though. I thought it'd be like 26. That kind of worries me now. 31, huh?
Tomato, right? 26, 31. What's it matter? You ain't going to win anything at the end of the day.
Who's 32? The Panthers? The Panthers are 32, I imagine, right?
Arizona.
So Arizona, then the Panthers are ahead of the Giants. Wow. Well,
the Panthers have actually, they put up some points on Miami. The Panthers are, I think the Panthers are getting better. Now, yes. What's like, they're not good. Like, they're probably a 2 out of 10, but maybe before the season they were a 1. So, there's a little growth there, and I think Bryce Young eventually will be okay, assuming they keep the right pieces around him. But if you're looking for a bet in that Giants and Raiders game, I would much rather you take the Giants. These 2-point teasers, if you find the right numbers, you can get -125, -130. I would much rather you tease the Giants up through 3 and through 7. Yeah. You could take them from a 1.5-point dog to a 7.5-point dog. And then let's go back to Carolina here. You don't want to lay 2.5 or take 2.5. Okay, let's knock it up to 8.5. You lay an 8.5 with Gardner Minshew on the road?
No,
nope, you're not.
No chance.
I think that's a teaser that probably has a lot of life there, where you take the Raiders and you take the Carolina Panthers, move them both up through 3 and 7. It makes it a lot more attainable, and the sweat is a lot less. You're not needing to win the game outright, because games don't really land 1 in the NFL. No. I'd much rather you sweat Giants plus 7.5 than Giants plus 1.5.
How much teasers, or how many teasers and parlays do you play in a weekend? Or that just more advice for the listeners?
Parlays never, but I should probably make that. Actually, hold on. Let me make that teaser right now, because I know it's going to hit. I'm going to make that teaser.
I went to my thing too. I like that teaser a lot. I'm going to do that too.
It's just it's making ugly teams less ugly by making ugly favorites atrocious. Right. You're not going to lay 1.5 with the Raiders probably, but you're definitely not going to lay 7.5. with the Raiders, so that it makes an ugly dog a little bit more like it's like putting lipstick on a pig, essentially. So I'll make the occasional teaser or two. I actually had a teaser pick last week on Fox. I think I teased the Bengals to 10 against the Niners, and then I can't remember the second leg of the teaser, but was able to get home. The occasional teaser never parlays. I never parlay. And I still have friends back in Chicago where I grew up that will, they'll send me their screenshots on Sunday morning, and it's a 14-leg teaser or 14-leg parlay, excuse me. And it's always the screenshot followed by the, what do you think? And then I'm like, all right, yeah, you got a winner there. And then they'll text me all kinds of stuff during the day. They're like, I only hit 12 out of 14. I'm so close. Yeah, imagine if you cut that parlay down to 5 legs that you actually liked. Well, that's no fun. Well, you're the perfect mark. You're the guy that everybody wants because your $10 parlay every Sunday that's going to never win over the course of 18 weeks, 10 times 18 it adds up. So these parlays are, especially NFL prop parlays, where you got 8 receivers in the game over, and then you got both quarterbacks to throw 3 touchdowns, and it just never works out that way. Parlays kill. I've always thought that. Illinois, when Illinois first launched betting in 2020, the first NFL season in Illinois, the houses, the books held 44% on parlays.
No way.
So, yeah, that's insanity. I mean, Vegas doesn't hold anywhere near 44%, but the parlays are what keep driving the business. And, a couple of years ago, this has actually come down a little bit. I used to get these push notifications to my phone in Chicago, and it would say, hey, make sure you make your same game parlay. Kickoff is an hour away. And I'm like, that's like selling crack to crackheads. Like how can you push that to my phone? Well, they push it because it's a loss leader for the players.
Oh, people love those. Before I let you go here, do you play props at all? Because I'm lacking very much in the prop market. I don't have the brain space to figure out props. I don't have like a system to get props going. I just play quarterback unders a bunch because I see like these bad quarterbacks and it hits more often than not, I feel like, but I can't do props. Are you a prop guy?
Not really. I think there's just too much variance. The common thing now on social media is, content creator X, Y, or Z looks at the box score and, oh, this has happened in 4 out of 6 games. It'll happen again. And we never take into account who the opponent was. Was it raining? Was it snowing? But that's everybody's doing props now. I did bet, as you know, I bet Levis last night to throw a pick. He should have had 4 in the fourth quarter.
Let's play the game.
They kept dropping balls in their hands. He was trying to give the ball away for the whole quarter, and he finally threw one at the end. I would say if like I made you a pie chart in the NFL, it would be like 40% totals, 40% sides, 10% teasers, and 10% props. Like the occasional prop I will bet. I did bet Tyson Bagent over 29.5 attempts this week against New Orleans. They're probably going to be down in that game, and he's going to have to throw the ball a lot. So I do have that out there, but very, very small catalog of props for me. I applaud the people that are good at it, but it's not something that I could do when I was younger. When I was a kid, when I was 15, 16, 17, we didn't have props. We had sides, we had totals, and we had parlays, and that was it. And I think that the younger generation is into more of the parlays and the props, where I was always a sides and a totals guy.
Yeah, I don't have the brain width to do the props thing. Plus, the thing you mentioned is funny when people, especially baseball, like it's got to hit 4 out of 6 games. It's going to be a hit in game 7. You're like, how does that make sense? I don't really get the logic behind that wager you're just making or telling me to make.
I remember there was a content creator last year, and I've stopped going at these content creators because then people label me, right? Like I'm a hater, or I hate this, or I hate that, and it's really not that worth it anymore. But there was a content creator that put out a best bet lock prop that had hit in 3 of the last 4 games. So I went and looked at that person's last 30 games, and it had only hit in 10. So we are shaping the stats now because I'm assuming this person knew that, it was 3 out of 4, but then it was 10 out of 30. Yeah, so 30%. Even in that light, we are taking the same stat and we are shaping it to fit our narrative. And I think that's the problem with a lot of the content in the space.
So be on the lookout, guys, for those. Do not wager on those, please. Only listen to Sammy. Listen to Sammy's wagers. He'll make you some money. Sammy, appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. This is very valuable for a lot of our listeners to learn about the ins and outs of this, so I don't just blabber about the games that I like. Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you. And hey, remember, we are going to bet the Brown Bears tomorrow
Yes.
if we can get +6.
Yes,
So
Brown's hosting Yale tomorrow, +6. If we can get it, we're taking it. The line will be out about 10 a.m. So make sure to check that out. Sammy, thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Geoff.
All right, guys, we're back here. We're trying to get rid of Sammy's box here, but we're back. We're going to do what we do every Friday now, where we pick the game, except Matt's not here, unfortunately. Again, congratulations to Matt and Ivy. Fantastic. Matt and I have been texting. We texted yesterday about our 5 picks of the week. Now, again, we are 26, 11, and 3, so we're having a good roll. I could not do this without Matt, okay? So we talked. We're ready to go. I'm not going to go over every game, but I'll tell you sort of where we're leaning, what picks we are going to take, and what the numbers are at the current time, because, of course, we can take the numbers as they are. So the first game of the weekend is the one in Germany. It is the Chiefs and Dolphins. Matt and I both on Kansas City this weekend. So Kansas City will be a pick. It is actually now we see some -1s. We'll take Kansas City -1 here. We're both of the opinion that Kansas City's going to have a bounce-back game. We're both of the opinion that you never get the opportunity to bet Kansas City at this number ever. And the game last weekend, I throw out the flu thing for Mahomes. Everyone's using that as an excuse, but he just didn't play as well. It was the lowest EPA game for this offense since Pat Mahomes has begun starting quarterback. They're going to bounce back. They're going to be fine. I never worry about Kansas City in a game against the Dolphins. I worry much more about Kansas City in a game against the Broncos. Their defense still very good. When the Dolphins get pushed around, as we've seen against now the Eagles and the Bills, they're not as good. The Chiefs defense can push the Dolphins around. And there's a little bit of me that thinks, too, there's going to be like a little too much from Tyreek. Because they do a little too much in this game. They're going to try a little bit too hard in this game to show the Chiefs what they're missing. So I like Kansas City here, -1. Sammy mentioned the Bears and Saints. I had nothing on that game. He likes the Bears. I would advise, if Sammy says it, I would take it. He's a good resource to do that with. The Browns and Cardinals, I've been on a Cardinals fade. You guys know this. We didn't have him last week. We had him 2 weeks before that. They covered last week at the very end of that game. The Browns have announced that Deshaun Watson will play in this game. That number has ballooned up to 10 now. Just no play on this whatsoever, even though, again, fading the Cardinals has been very good for me and for us the last 5 weeks, except last weekend, obviously, they covered. But, again, if you've been doing it last month or so, you've made money. The Cardinals are just not very good. You heard Sammy say, lowest rated team in the NFL. If you took a Clayton Tune here, who might start for the Cardinals here, is under his passing prop. That's how I would play this game. I think with the Browns at the 10, you could tease the Browns 7-point teaser down, I guess, if you wanted to, but maybe just stay away here. Rams, Packers, complete stay away. Not going to touch that one at all. Matthew Stafford may or may not play. The Packers are now officially on the do not wager on list. Nick, put it down. Do not wager on the Packers ever again. We did it last weekend. They're out. I'm just never going to do it again. It's not going to happen. I think we're 0 for the season betting on them. We have the Vikings. I mentioned, Vikings, Falcons. Sam mentioned the points here in this game, not changing very much with Cousins out. It's true. Vikings favored by 4. I think I would lean Minnesota, but we have no play on this game whatsoever. Seahawks, Ravens. This game is now out to 6. Oh, man. I saw a number that said Lamar Jackson is 3-14 against the spread when favored by 3.5 points or more. This line feels off. It feels like Vegas is telling you that Baltimore is far better than Seattle. And look at Seattle last 3 weeks, right? A win against this should be a loss against the Bengals at that poor red zone. We talked about that. We joked about that on the show. Barely covered against the Cardinals. We had Seattle in that game. Then last weekend was a funky game against the Browns. The number was anywhere from 3.5 to 4.5. Landed on 4. They should have won that game. I was leaning Seattle, but Matt and I talked it through. We have no play on this one for us. The game we are going to play here, one we both liked, is Houston. There is some 2.5s right now. Houston is hosting the Tampa Bay Bucks. We're going to say that last weekend for Houston was a bad game. They lost the Panthers. We were on the Panthers in that game. It just wasn't a good game for them, but we both think they are better than the Bucks. And anytime you can basically bet against Baker Mayfield, I think you have to do that. And so we're playing Houston here, minus 2.5 right now. Yeah, I mean, Houston's DVOA is 16. I mean, like they're 16. Tampa Bay is 22. Tampa Bay offense is 25. I mean, Tampa Bay is just not a good team. So I'm perfectly okay taking Houston here. Houston is getting, 2.5 points. There's a 2.5 out. We're taking a 2.5. There's one at South Point right now. There's one on some of the other apps you can wager on. So 2.5 for us in that game. That's our second game we're going to have here. The Commanders are at the Patriots. Now, we're 0-3 this season wagering on the Patriots, but we're not going to wager on the Patriots in this game. We're going to wager on the Commanders. Now, this number yesterday, when Matt and I talked, was 3.5. Is no longer 3.5. It's now 3. So we're going to take the 3 anyways. This is one Matt liked, and it wasn't my favorite, but we've done this show this year where we kind of are trusting each other because it's been working out for us, obviously, that we've been doing this. His point, and I get it, his point is that, like, why is Mac Jones laying 3 to anyone? It's a fair point. Sam Howell has looked decent the last couple of weeks. He's looked more improved the last couple of weeks. My counter to Matt's point was like, look, man, Washington traded Sweat and Young, and there could be a deflation from the team basically saying like, hey, man, we're not trying anymore. And whether or not the team sort of gives up in that situation, give up is the wrong word to use, but doesn't play as hard, right? Doesn't have that much passion preparing for this week. So that could be something that I'll put it like this. It worried me. But in the end, Mac Jones is getting 3 points, and you can't do that. Like, you just can't bet Mac Jones getting 3 points. There's no reason why he should have 3 points. So we're going to take Washington in this spot. Next up on the list, the afternoon games. I like the Panthers plus the 3, plus the 2.5. We're going to sit that one out though. The Colts rush defense is really good, and the Colts rush offense is good. The Panthers rush defense is bad. We're sitting that one out. Eagles Cowboys. Sammy, as you heard, is on Cowboys plus 3. It's one Matt liked too. We decided not to take it because I would play Philly here, even though I don't love it. But the Cowboys, to me, they're such a front-running team. If they're up early in a game, I almost want to live bet them whatever number they're at because they're going to play much better. If they're behind in a game, they're just not the same team. They don't rush the passer as well. Dak gets a little bit tight. But I think the Eagles are not as good as they were last year, which we know. Jalen Hurts' knee, by the way, 1 rush last weekend outside of the tush pushes, not quite as good there. I'm going to sit this one out. Just going to watch this game. We'll sit out as a group. Next up on the list here is the Giants and Raiders. We're taking the Giants here. It is minus, assuming we get plus 2 points here for the Giants. I do not understand why the Raiders are favored in this game. I mean, maybe we're totally off on this one. But Daniel Jones comes back for the Giants. It looks like Saquon's going to play. It looks like Andrew Thomas, your left tackle, might play. So getting sort of everyone back healthy. So you have to throw out last weekend, right? Last weekend was Tyrod Taylor and who was Tommy DeVito quarterback. Like, throw that one out. Defense played well last weekend. I know Leonard Williams is gone. I get that. But the Raiders just shuffled everything. Fired their coach, fired their OCs. They have a new coach right now, new quarterback, Aiden O'Connell. Giants desperate for a win in this spot after losing the Jets last weekend. So we're rolling with the Giants here at plus 2. And our last wager for the weekend is going to be the Bengals. Let's look what the line is right now. It's 2s across the board. So we'll take the minus 2 here. As I mentioned to Sammy, I I think this line has not been adjusted to how well the Bengals have played lately. Because the Bengals are playing good football right now. They're the second or third best team in the AFC behind the Chiefs. And you could argue they're playing better football than the Chiefs. And when they're back, I'm taking them in this game against Buffalo. Remember last year before DeMar Hamlin, had his heart incident. The Bengals were rolling in that game, right? They'd scored 7 points. They forced a 3-and-out, and they were driving down the field again to go up 10 or 14 points. The playoff game last year in the snow, the Bengals dominated that game. The Bengals, I think, sort of have their number right now. And Buffalo, as I mentioned, to me feels too much variance, man. I don't know what I'm getting from them. And defensively, they're just different without Milano, without White in there. So I'll take the Bengals here. And the last game of the weekend we're not playing is Jets Chargers. If you take the Chargers on the road here, you're losing your own money. That's just don't do it. So to recap, before we get to the vaulted picks, I'm gonna put these 5 picks in the vaulted app. Before we get to vaulted pool stuff, here we go. Ready? Kansas City -1, Houston -2.5, Washington +3, Giants +2, Bengals -2. That's what we're playing this week. These are picks that Matt and I chose. We have some new dad luck for Matt on the Matt side. So let's get to the vaulted pool for this week. Remember, go to the vaulted app, download the app, VLTED, find me, Geoff, join my pool, cash prize each week, free to join, $500 total, $400 first place, $75 second place, $25 third place. And if you beat me in the pool, which some weeks is easier than others, last week was a bad week for me, you're entered into the $5,000 pool for the big game. Go to the vaulted app. Ton of fun. We do this each and every week. There's 20 predictions. You agree or disagree. You put a confidence of 1 to 10. I just started doing 10 for all of them. Why not? So here's some ones I like here. Myles Garrett will have more than 1 sack against the Cardinals. I will go agree here. Their offensive line is not up to task against Myles Garrett, and the Browns defense has not been as good lately, but Myles Garrett's incredible. He's the best player in the field. Best player in the field. You have Texans will cover 3.5 against the Bucs here. That's obviously an old number. I guess I would say agree on this one, even though we have this number at 2.5. So I would say yes. CJ Stroud will agree. CJ Stroud will pass more than 1.5 touchdowns. Agree. I don't think the Texans are winning this game if Stroud doesn't do that. We get a good number here. Patriots will cover 3.5 against the Commanders. Disagree, because we like the Commanders to cover this game, especially at 3.5. And also Mac Jones and more passing yards than Sam Howell. Disagree. Like, Sam Howell's going to throw for more yards. That is the offense right now. They do not run the ball in Washington. We have here Raiders will cover the 2.5 against the Giants. Disagree there. I think the Giants outright win that game. Giants will score more than 18.5 points against the Raiders. I agree with that one as well. Here's a fun one. CeeDee Lamb will have more receiving yards than A.J. Brown. I will disagree, even though Lamb and Dak have had a good connection, but Brown is just, him and Tyreek Hill need to be considered for MVPs. They're playing fantastic this season. So I'll disagree with that. I'll go with A.J. Brown here. And that's it for the vaulted pool this week. There's 20 questions. Those are the ones I like. You go through all of them. Again, download the vaulted app, VLTED. Go for me, Geoff with a G, Geoff, and join the pool. We're getting more entries each week. We really love it for you guys to join and play along with me. You can challenge me as well using the challenge feature on the app. All right, everyone. It has been a fun podcast. Glad for Sammy to join us. Hope you guys enjoyed a little difference in what we do. Hopefully Matt is back soon. Hoping to get him back next week. We'll see. If not, we'll do some more interviews. We'll have some more picks. We'll continue to roll right along. Have a great weekend of sports, everyone. We'll talk to you guys on Monday.